Now, it's of course up to you with which part you want to start, with the comments or with the file uploads. I will start with the file uploads because that will require changes to our post model and will then have to update or recreate all our posts because of that, because the way we add images will totally change. Therefore, I'll start with the file uploads and then add the other features later. But of course, any order is okay and works. So how do we add file uploads? Well, I definitely don't want to manage storing a file and so on my own. Instead, I want to let Django manage that, just as I taught it to you in the file uploads section. And therefore, I want to go to my models and there to the post model and change this image field here. Instead of storing the image name as a text, I want to store the image as a file, though you learned, of course, that in reality, Django will not store the image in the database, but it will instead store the image on the hard drive somewhere in our file system, and it will just store the path to that image in the database, and it will then also later give us a URL we can use and so on. Hence, I'll remove image name from the post model, and instead I'll add an image field. Of course, this name is up to you, where the type should be image field. Not file field, but image field, because I really want to just allow images here. Now that's this field, and I'll set the upload to parameter here to tell Django where this image should be uploaded to. And I want to store it in a posts folder, but important, that posts folder should then itself sit inside of a, let's say, uploads folder. And that uploads folder is a folder which I'll create here on my root level. So I'll add a new uploads folder in my project, which sits next to the global static and templates folders. And this uploads folder, that is the folder where the images should be stored in. To be precise, there they should be stored in a posts subfolder. Now you learned that for this, we need to configure our project a little bit. So let's go to settings py, and there at the very bottom, I will now add this media root setting, which I explained in the file uploads section. Here we control which root folder will be used for storing our media files. And here I want to use that uploads folder. We have to set this to an absolute path, and we can do this with the base dir variable combined with uploads. I also will set the media URL variable, which then will define the actual URL or the path segment in the URL from which the files will then be served to the client. And that is /uploads here, but this is up to you. This just controls how the URL will later look like for accessing that data. You could also name this files. And let's maybe go with that instead of uploads to make it really clear that these two don't have to be the same. So now this is configured here. And now we need to make sure that we install this pillow package if you didn't do that yet. So for that, I'll quit the dev server, and then with python 3-m pip, I'll install pillow. This extra Python package, which I already did install in the file upload section, which is why I don't need to install it again, or why it instantly finished here. But you need to install this to make sure that the image field works correctly. And thereafter, we can restart our development server. So now the model is adjusted, and we added this uploads folder. Now, with our model adjusted, we need to make our migrations again, and we need to run those migrations again. So I'll start by making the migrations with make migrations. And now we have a problem. We have a problem reported to us because we're trying to add a non-nullable field image to posts without a default. So, of course, when we add this new field, we already have existing posts. They don't have an image yet. Now we can either select a one-off default, which will then be assumed for all those existing posts, or we quit and adjust our configuration. Now, as in the past, I will select option 2 here, and I will adjust my image field here slightly. I will add an extra option, and here I'll set null to true to allow null values here. So to make sure that if no image is provided, null is saved in that database field as a special value instead of it being blank. With that, we can make the migrations, and now they are created successfully. And now we can run migrate. If we do so, our database was updated, and we can then, of course, rerun our development server with run server. If we have a look at our application now, here, we of course now get an error though. The problem is that we now still try to access the image name, but that field doesn't exist anymore. If we inspect a single post, we see that the image name field is gone, and instead now here we got a file picker. So let's actually start with that. Let's update the existing posts by picking a file, and then in the next step, let's update this user-facing front end, and let's make sure that we dare then use the uploaded files.